Hey everyone, so you should have just finished your reading, hopefully, on the Tang Dynasty. And now I'm going to talk to you about another Chinese dynasty called the Song Dynasty. The Tang and Song dynasties bring about a golden age in China from the late 600s to the year 1279. So for a long period, China is experiencing a period of prosperity. Remember, during that same period in Western Europe, they're really struggling during the Middle Ages. But China really is going to thrive under these two dynasties. So let's talk about why. One thing is during the Song Dynasty, tremendous improvements in farming. Um, a faster growing rice is brought in from Southeast Asia, and farmers are able to make more rice. They can do this in doing so, they're creating surpluses or extra amounts of rice, which means two really important things. First, you're going to see a tremendous population increase during the Song Dynasty. And second, you don't need as many farmers because you're able to grow more rice. So more people are going to be working in trade, okay, merchants. Here are a couple of technologies. Actually, on the left is a water wheel that was used during the Tang Dynasty, which could bring water from mountainous areas to other parts of China. And on the right, you're going to see a picture of terrace farming, which actually creates more land to grow by building up. Okay? So during the Song Dynasty, trade is going to flourish. And same thing during the Tang Dynasty as well. More so, though, during the Song Dynasty, you're going to see more overseas trade. During the Song Dynasty, better ships were built, and I'll show you a picture of the Indian Ocean Trade Network. You're going to see ships moving to Southeast Asia, parts of India. And because trade was thriving, the government decided to actually create paper money. And the Song Dynasty are the first to ever do that. It's much easier to carry, not as heavy as coins were. And so the ideas and technologies that we'll learn about are going to slowly spread westward to the Mediterranean, to Europe via the Silk Road. And the government of these dynasties helps promote trade through a system of canals. You read about the Sui dynasty, how they really improved the Grand Canal. And there are going to be even more canals built that are going to link areas in the south of China to the north of China. And mainly grain is going to be shipped throughout the Chinese dynasty. So here's a cool picture. You can see the area shaded in green is the Song dynasty here. And all these different arrows are representing directions which things are traveling. And if you look, you're going to see, we'll discuss this a little later, but Buddhism, the civil service exam, ideas, porcelain, printing, writing system, all these different things are going to spread into Southeast Asia. This is present day Vietnam, Thailand, and into Korea and Japan as well. Here's a picture. This is actually a painting during the Song period of what a city would look like. You can see it's bustling. Merchants are in and out of towns, bringing new goods, bringing new ideas, and it's a bustling city. So society under the Song Dynasty was very well ordered. At the top, you had an emperor, and he had a court of very wealthy families. Right under the emperor was the gentry, and these people worked in the bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is a variety of government departments. We are a bureaucracy. We don't have one person or just a few people in charge of doing everything. We have a department that is involved in collecting taxes called the IRS. Well, during the Song Dynasty, their government was very efficient and could maintain order because they had different departments. So you had people that worked in tax collecting, people who studied medicine, people who studied math. And under the Song Dynasty, you see a revival of Confucianism. Remember, we learned about Confucianism, the 5 key relationships, filial piety, respecting your elders. Well, you're going to see this revival of Confucian thought. And at the top of society, that gentry, these were people who studied Confucian ideas. They passed the rigorous civil service exam, which allowed them to get a position in the government, which was a tremendous honor. Now, you might say when you look at that chart, wow, Mr. Fazio, peasants are actually not even the lowest class. And you're correct. Merchants are actually lower class. The reason is because even though they could be really wealthy merchants, in China, the thought was that they're making their money off of other people. So they're trading other people's goods, and that's why they're considered to be lower class. Next, we'll actually see a picture. This might look familiar. This is a picture during the Song Dynasty of the emperor right here receiving someone taking the civil service exam. Okay. And notice you'll see men, right? No women were able to take these exams. Speaking of women in the Song Dynasty, women they do have a little bit of a higher status. However, during the Song Dynasty, boys are still valued more than girls. In fact, this interesting practice develops during the Song Dynasty called foot binding. And if you see that image to the right, you will see that those do not look like normal shaped feet. Well, what happened was when a young girl during the Song Dynasty would actually bind her feet together, and it produced this shorter lily-shaped foot, which is about half the size of a normal foot. Now, why would they do that? Well, this became a symbol of wealth and beauty. If you had these tiny feet and you had this little stilted walk about you, it meant that you were someone who was well off. And Chinese men saw this as a symbol of beauty. So this is an interesting practice. It shows how women are kind of subservient or kind of inferior in a sense to men during this period. And I'm going to show you a picture on the next slide that's a little maybe interesting to look at, but that is what an older woman who had bound her foot. This practice still has gone on in China, not so much anymore, but that's what a woman who had her foot bound would look like. Okay? So during the Song Dynasty, guys, you know, golden ages, they see advancements in science and technology. Some really, really important advancements are made. Gunpowder is developed. It's first used in fireworks, and then it's discovered that it can be used for military purposes, cannons and things like that. Movable print. The Chinese developed woodblock printing, and they also figured out how they could actually print kind of move to produce books. Now, when they were able to print these books, they're able to make more of them, and which means they can make them cheaper, and this is going to spread learning throughout the Song Dynasty. The magnetic compass is improved, which helps sailors at sea. I told you guys during the Song Dynasty that sea trade takes off. And the mechanical clock, which I know to you guys this doesn't look like one. I'll spotlight it here. But this is actually the first mechanical clock that is developed during the Song ever, and is developed during the Song Dynasty. This is an example of a cannon, pretty cool, the dragon. But yeah, it is a cannon, and again, gunpowder could be loaded in, and cannonballs could be fired. You would see these on ships, and it was a way for the Song to defend themselves. They do. The Song Dynasty does experience invasions. The empire will shrink. I'm going to put a video up for you guys to look at that will show you how the Song kind of splits into the north and south, because the northern Song Dynasty is kind of taken over. Here's an example of an old Chinese book that was used by movable print, that was created by movable print. And this is a really interesting chart. You can see how Chinese technology slowly spreads. So I'm going to highlight for a second. If you see, this is a cool chart. So you can see when these things are invented in China. At the top here, you have paper, the oldest book printed, movable type, compass, explosives. These are all created, these things right here, during the Song Dynasty. Well, guess what? They don't reach Europe. When you say received in the West, they don't reach the West in Europe. The compass, and it's not until 1190, 90 years after it's invented in China. Gunpowder doesn't reach the West until 1330. It's invented in 1161 in China. Block printing doesn't happen for another almost 400 years, 300 to 400 years. So this technology through the Silk Road and other trade networks will slowly spread to the West, but it takes some time. Okay, let's take a look at some of the cultural achievements during the Tang and Song dynasties. A rich culture develops, guys. One thing that is symbolic of the time are these landscape paintings that often combine trees, mountains, might see rivers, really focusing on nature. If you remember, we learned about a religion a while ago when we learned about Confucianism and legalism called Taoism, which emphasized being one with nature. These paintings kind of reflect that. Sculpture and architecture. During Tang and Song dynasties, Buddhism becomes a big part of religious life, and it does spread to this area. Most sculptures, this is a wooden carving focused on the Buddha. This is a good example of cultural diffusion. You know, if you were to see a picture of the Buddha in India, where Buddhism first develops, it might not look like this. Another really cool architectural design are the pagoda, which are a style of these homes right here. And you can see the pagodas are kind of characterized. This is more of a Buddhist style by these curled roof lines right here. If you've ever been to Epcot in Disney, maybe you've seen and you visited China, you can see these pagodas there. And here I have actually some pictures of some pagodas that are still standing today that were built during the Song dynasty. Most of the pagodas did survive, although a lot of the other temples may have been destroyed. Porcelain. Okay, the Tang and Song dynasties were known for their porcelain. It was found in parts of Africa because it was traded. It was really valued. Porcelain is a type of material that these vases right here are made out of. And the Chinese were experts in designing materials made out of porcelain, and that you can see that they even decorated them as well. These were very highly valued and sought after by other people in other lands. And poetry. Prose and poetry flowed during this period. Oftentimes also focusing on nature. I have right here on the slide, you guys can see an example. This is a translated poem written during the Song dynasty. And it talks about mountains and ridges, the peaks. So again, it kind of focuses on a lot of nature. So hopefully this gives you guys a little bit of insight into the Song dynasty, the really and following and continuing with the Tang dynasty that brings about this golden age in China. All right, guys, I hope you have a great day, and I will see you soon.